Everyone, I'm Chase Lee doing another movie review for DallasMoviescreens.com, and the movie on today's docket, if you will, is The Comedian, starring Bobby De Niro. That wasn't funny, so trust me, I will never do that again. The movie's called The Comedian, and it's about an aging insult comic named Jack Burke, and played by Robert De Niro, and we just kind of see him go throughout his life. That's it. However, I was looking forward to this movie because I know that Robert De Niro has it in him to pull out a great movie and a great performance. But when you see movies like Dirty Grandpa last year, you realize that your life is getting shorter at the very moment that you're watching the movie, and you almost would just want to just die right there and wither away off the planet Earth. However, watching the trailer for this movie, I was excited because I was like, okay, it might look like a really smaller indie film that, Robert De Niro attached himself on before, maybe Dirty Grandpa, and, just maybe. So how was the movie? It was okay at best. So let's get real and break down The Comedian. So we'll start with the writing and directing. Starting with the writing in particular and the story and its characters. The story itself, like I said, is about an aging insult comic. Something happens to him. He's got to do community service, and then he goes to a shelter where he does his community service, and he meets Leslie Mann, and we just kind of go off from there. It's definitely a story that we've really is nothing different than we've seen before. When you think about these like comedian movies or like stand-up movies, it's always about a comedian doing their sets and then dealing with their life outside of it, whether it be with like love or friendship or just dealing with society and society not agreeing with him and stuff. I get it. It's a story about a stand-up comedian because comedians are said to be some of the most tragic and sad people and use comedy as a front. I do the same thing, except I'm not funny. So I guess that just makes me sad and unfunny. Whoops. So anyways, definitely, like I said, nothing we've have not seen before. It doesn't really take any risk or any like changes within the story that would be different from this type of story. Just no risk we're taking. And, tonally with the actual story, it just doesn't really mesh well either. Like when you have Robert De Niro in his stand-up scenes, some of them are pretty funny. Some of the jokes he is zinging are pretty great. He's got the wit and the sharp edge that you need to be a comedian. He does that very well. But then you would switch to like these more dramatic and quieter moments, and it just doesn't mesh well with the two as a cohesive story. Now, when you have something as like this with a stand-up comedian, you're going to be pretty funny, pretty raunchy and whatnot. So you need to have that balance and show the more human and more emotional side that many people do not get to see stand-up comedians as, because they don't get to see the persona on stage, but not really get to see them off the stage. I get that, and you need that. But it did not transition well from the raunchy comedy to the little bit of character that was developed. You know what I'm saying? So it didn't have like a good transition tonally. It just felt like this weird shift, and it felt like a different movie almost. So yeah, as far as like tonally and just the average nature of the story, I didn't really care for it, and I wasn't really interested to begin with. And plus, the love story that is constructed out of Leslie Mann and Robert De Niro, it's like, I guess, I mean, I wasn't really on board for it. I didn't really feel any emotional weight to anything that they were doing. So, and speaking of the characters, going on to that, I mean, you don't really get to know anyone that well. Besides Leslie Mann and Robert De Niro's character, everyone else is kind of either one note or they just have like kind of quirks about them. They don't really have like a personality, and it's just like, okay, like you could have easily taken out like Danny DeVito's character or Harvey Keitel's character. It would have not made a lick of difference. As far as Robert De Niro's character goes, I think the comedian portion of his character is better than, the more human aspects about his character, because like I said, some of the stuff that he does in the movie where he, is revealing some horrific past about himself, it doesn't flow well with his character. And I never really bought into any of all that. Sorry, that sounded dumb. Any of all of that. Wow. It's been a long week, everyone. But no, I never felt like the characters themselves were that like kind of developed, or even to a point where I cared about everything that they were doing, especially when you're focusing on the two leads like Leslie Mann and Robert De Niro. Just didn't feel it. Directing wise, once again, very average, very basic, nothing really exciting or fresh or new that was coming out of this movie is in terms of style or just effort put in terms of how you put the story together. Just like, yeah, it's a movie. There it is. And also, one of my good critic friends, Kerry Darling from the Four-Star Telegram, he brought up a good point when we were in the screening. We left. He was like, that felt like a sitcom. And every single time when there would transition between scenes, you would have like that jazz saxophone like playing in the background. And you're like, is this supposed to be like a parody of like New York movies? Or like, I don't even know what's going on. So yeah, it felt like a parody of itself, which was ironic considering it was dealing with a stand-up comedian. I have no clue. So yeah, direction-wise, kind of flat in my opinion. Acting-wise, if we're going to talk strictly performance, not the characters themselves, I thought Robert De Niro and Leslie Mann did a pretty good job. When you think about what you're supposed to do as a comedian, you're supposed to have like that confidence, that wit, that humor, that charisma, and that charm just on there on stage oozing. And I did feel that from Robert De Niro's performance. I felt all that. Everything else beyond that, didn't feel it. Especially like all the genuine kind of heartfelt moments that he was doing. He was good in the performance, but like I said, I just didn't care, so I just kind of checked out. Leslie Mann, you have the sweet nature of her character. You have the flawed aspects about her character. You have the bite to her character where she doesn't, take crap from anyone. She'll stand up and start yelling at you. I liked all those traits, but that was as far as we've gotten with her. And she was good portraying those traits and kind of like, this character that she latches onto with Robert De Niro. That's about it. So performance-wise, both of them are very good, and everyone else is okay. Like, honestly, you could have gotten anyone for Harvey Keitel and Danny DeVito's character. There's no reason to have him in there. It just felt like a waste to me. But performance-wise, De Niro and Mann do a pretty good job. Cinematography, once again, also very flat. When you're dealing with a movie that's set in New York, you're supposed to have like this luscious environment with all the lights popping out from the signs and the people, rushing across streets and stuff. It's supposed to feel, epic and, claustrophobic, but at the same time, you kind of want to go visit there because it looks inviting, it looks beautiful and stuff. I didn't feel any of that from the cinematography. Once again, very flat, just nothing was ambitious about it. It was just kind of like a standard story, and the cinematography didn't really help it any. So editing wise, this is where people are going to probably fight the most about it. The movie's 2 hours long. I'm going to sit there and tell you that me right now to you that the movie itself, I did not find boring, but I did find it was a bit too long. Like I when I got out of it, I was like, I enjoyed myself, but I can see where people would get frustrated with the length of the film. It is 2 hours long. It does feel a little bloated. There's some side stuff going on that just, you could have honestly taken it out and been like, okay, like didn't really make a difference to the story. So I think the 2 hour runtime is what's really going to turn people off and really kind of put a sour taste in people's mouth as they walk out of the theater. Not me personally, but I'm just giving you guys a heads up and a warning. So overall, guys, not the best thing I've seen this year, but it's also not the worst thing I've seen this year. Now, I was debating on whether putting it in the D category or the C category. Now, if I put it in the D category, I'm basically classifying it as a Bye-Bye Man or Resident Evil The Final Chapter. I don't want to do that because I do think, like I said, the performances are well-intentioned and some of the humor was there and kind of hit me and like, how like when you're in a comedy club and like the humor is flying at you and like you kind of want to giggle, but you're also like looking around to see if everyone else laughs because it was like super offensive or like super sexual. That's how I felt as an audience member, which catered very well to the stand-up comedy aspects. So I thought some of the humor worked, not the performances were good. So I want to bump it up into the C's. I don't want to give it a C plus. I don't want to give it a C. So I think I'm just gonna settle with a C minus for the comedian. Not really my style. I think everything else beyond the performances and some of the humor was a little flat to me, and I just honestly didn't care about most of the story and the characters. So that's why I'm having to dip it down to a C minus. So it's kind of a toss-up for me. So, just what did you guys think about the comedian or have you even heard of it? Comment the place for my face and let me know. And for all those people out there that are down voting on IMDb because Robert De Niro made a statement on Trump, you're an idiot. I do not like Trump in the slightest, but I'm not gonna judge someone because they made a political statement and then go downvote the newest movie they have coming out. It's childish, dude. Like, go watch the movie and judge it for yourself. It having a 4.7 on IMDb because of those angry Trump supporters, that is not an excuse. It's not even close to a 4. Like I said, I'd probably give it like a 5, 5.5, like at the very least. So at least bump it up a little bit. But yeah, I just had to get that out there because it just bugged me when I was online looking at the IMDb page. So yeah, that is it for the comedian, guys. So yeah, I'm Chase Lee reporting for DallasMovieScreens.com, and tune in next time for whatever I review next. I will see you guys later.